I am the director of the Hesston Public Library, and I've been here for about 18 months. So I was not here during the time of the Hesston tornado. I do remember the Hesston tornado because I was in high school at the time. I actually went to high school in Wichita and was much closer to the Andover tornado the year later. My background with the artifacts is twofold. When I came into the Hesston Public Library, the previous director, Carrie Cusick, had been here for about 4.5 years. And before her, Chris Buller had been here for 2 decades, for 20 years. And the interesting thing is she started just weeks before the tornado hit. So she was a brand new director right before the tornado happened. Right after the tornado, or because of the tornado, she saw the need to collect or to make an archive, to gather up some of the materials, like a newspaper, to gather up some of these items that were, because of the tornado, little tiny pieces of paper that, for the most part, a thank you note here, or a piece of paper that may have been stuck to a wall, something that normally you may have thrown away. There was a need to, let's put it away and hold on to it because it tells part of the story. It tells who went where, when, why, who was involved. This material was looked at. It was very important in the first few years afterwards as folks were rebuilding. It was important about every 5 years when anniversaries came around. And then, it just got put in a tub, put away. After a while, was accessed less and less. Times have changed a little bit, and we have some new opportunities with digitization, meaning scanning some of these items, digitizing them, taking an electronic picture of them, and making them accessible in a digital format. So folks around the world, folks who maybe were here during the tornado but no longer live in Hesston, can access these archives that otherwise were in a tub in a closet. Here in a library, our goal is to not only preserve materials and collect materials, whether it be books or artifacts like these, but also to make them accessible to our patrons, to the public, to our community. And so we were doing the preserving part, but we also needed to make them more accessible. We could have hauled out the tub anytime and let you dig through them, but it makes it much more accessible to digitize it. In fact, just today, I logged on to our website where we have this material scanned in, and because of a radio program that we had on featuring the website, we've had another almost 300 hits on the digital collection in the last 3 hours today. So 300 people have taken a look at Hesston's history with relations to the tornado. There was a team involved in the digitizing of the archives. I wish I could take credit for it, but I wrote the grant and I worked with amazing people. I have to say that Sarah Roth-Mullet, who lives here in Hesston, did the vast majority of the slogging through every single piece of material that came out of those original tubs of material that were collected right out of out of the original stuff that Chris had in the closets. That was done in conjunction with our regional library system, and they were instrumental in helping us with some of the technology with that. I did say that this was twofold, though. Not only did we have that original material, but we thought, okay, this went pretty good. And then as we started to look through it, we realized, boy, we can tell part of the story, but it seems like there's a lot of things that as people talk about their memories, we really don't have material that goes along with that, or we don't have any pictures of the spray painted X's on the houses, before they came down, or we don't have any pictures of King Park and all of the material that was spread out along King Park. So what we did was we opened it up to the public and said, if you would loan us your analog material, your physical material, we don't want to keep it. We do not want to store your material. But if you would loan us your material and allow us to take a digital copy and share that digital copy, we'll give it back to you. And we will retain a digital library of that material. That's what we're in the process of now. And we have a staff person, Emily Miller, here, who has been taking that activity on. We have, oh my gosh, in the original stuff, we had maybe 1,000 items that Sarah processed. I don't even know how many we have to go with what Emily is doing right now. We have stacks and stacks of albums and boxes of videos, and it's exciting to see what we have, but it's a little bit daunting too. We want to make sure we're good caretakers of everyone's individual materials while it's in our possession. When we ask for materials from the public, we were also interested in receiving some three-dimensional materials, not just paper goods, but some physical artifacts that either we could keep in on permanent loan, it would still belong to them, or that they would be willing to donate to us so that we could have almost a miniature museum in a way, but a part of the learning here about our town. We have many stories to tell here in Hesston. The tornado is not the only one, but it would be nice to have some of these physical artifacts because they do tell such a story. Some of the artifacts that we've received, John Regier, a neighbor, someone who doesn't live very far from the library, brought in a signpost that came out of his yard. It is the signpost of Park and Meadow, and most of the signposts in the area and the homes in the area were destroyed. And this one, you'll notice when you take a look at the images of it, is the metal is completely bent and wrapped around and curved, and you can definitely see the force of the wind and the power and how it molded and wrapped the metal. The photo that he took of the sign in place or in situ before he removed it, has the sign, completely leaning over too. So it does, tell of the extreme power that went through that area. Some of the other materials that were brought in, we have a chunk of I-beam here behind me that was cut out of the Hesston Decorating Center, and it was part of that mall that was along Old 81, and this was just a small section. But if you think about the pounds per square inch that it must have taken to ripple the I-beam, to ripple that steel and to pull down that steel, it's just amazing. Lastly, one of the other artifacts, we know that bicycle tires are fairly flimsy. They can get beat up and run over and bent around, but to still see one in that condition it tells of either a car wreck or something traumatic. And we do have one of those in here that has just been twisted and warped around, and the spokes are all pulled out of it. So it does show some dramatic damage. One of the last things that we've been very lucky to have here for a couple of weeks, and that is a wreath that was made by Mildred Martins Unruh, and that was taken or made from portions of her home that not only was hit by a tornado, but then was the one home in Hesston that burned after the tornado. So the materials that you see in the wreath are not only suffered the damage from the storm, but also were melted and had gone through the trauma of a fire too. And so that was a little bit different than some of the other materials that we have in here. It tells just a little bit different story than some of the other things that we have here, and we were very, very lucky to have